What does it mean to be a warrior? What does it mean to stand against the odds and stand in resilience and strength? We're going to talk about it today on The Bravehearted Woman. Hey, everybody, this is Dawn Damon, and this is my show, The Bravehearted Woman. Thanks for stopping by. Hey, each week I bring important topics for women just like you to help you live with courage and confidence and bold vision for your future. So make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode. I'm always giving out free resources that empower you. So you ready? Come on, let's get brave. Hey, all you beautiful, brave-hearted women. So glad you are with us again today. I'm your girl, Dawn Damon. And today, my guest is a professional speaker, transformative thought leader, a passionate leader, and an advocate for resilience, transformation, and women's empowerment. And you know we need that. But listen, her personal journey, marked by a diagnosis of multiple myeloma and a challenging prognosis, has fueled her pursuit of a limitless legacy. Please welcome CEO of Hickson Agency, a community advocate, and multiple myeloma warrior, Keisha Hickson. Hey, Keisha.
Hey, Dawn. Thank you for having me, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well, you're a wonderful woman. You are a warrior. We're going to talk about that today. And I'm just so excited for my listeners to get to know a little bit about you. So, why don't we just dive in? I'd love to hear a
Sure.
little bit about your story because, as I said in the beginning, despite a challenging prognosis of incurable cancer, my goodness, girl. And yet here you are, and you say this is just a catalyst for personal growth and development. Talk about it for a moment.
So in 2016, I suffered a fall at home. My elbow had a little bit of pain, so I sought medical attention. I didn't really think it was nothing. I fell, I hit my elbow, fine. So I go to the urgent care, and the doctor said, I doubt it's broken because you're in good health. She goes, well, let's take an x-ray just to see. I said, okay, no problem. The look on the doctor's face when she read the x-ray, I was like, calm down,
Ooh,
calm down. She was like, something is wrong with you and you have to go see an orthopedic doctor. I found one for you. It was Martin Luther King weekend, and he's open tomorrow, which is Monday, which is everything is closed on Martin Luther King Day.
sure.
So I go, he goes, oh, it could be a few things. It may be this, it may be that. Okay. But I want you to go take an MRI Tuesday, which was the next day. I went. And then I received a phone call that changed everything. He said, Keisha, I don't know you that well, but I know you're a straight shooter. He said, you have multiple myeloma. I didn't even know what that was because
Mm.
it doesn't say cancer in the title. So I was at work. I turned around to my computer. I did a quick Google search. What popped up? Multiple myeloma, a rare incurable cancer of the plasma cells. Dot,
Oh,
dot, dot. Life expectancy, 3 to 5 years. I was like, what?
wow.
I was
Uh,
like, this can't be it. So he goes on to tell me I have to come to the office, X, Y, and Z. I said, no, no, I'll call you back. Just tell me the date and time I have to come to the hospital and I'll be there. If I tell you, my world went upside down.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, what? I was 38 years old
Oh, my goodness.
and I may not live to see my 44th birthday.
Mm-mm.
I was
That's
like,
an
this cannot
unacceptable
be it.
diagnosis.
This cannot be it. So anyway, I pulled myself together. I called him back because I just could not believe what he was saying. He goes, Keisha, I'm sorry, but you do have it. It's confirmed. Make the appointment, which is the following Monday, and we're going to start treatment. Right then and there, the first thing that came to my mind was my daughter. She was 8 years old at the time. And during that stint, I worked for a bank for, at that point, maybe 22 years, 21 years. I was a senior vice president. I was in retail banking. Life was as status quo. Like I was living the American dream, like going to work. I had a beautiful daughter. I lived in the suburbs. And this happens.
Mm.
So at that moment, I had to decide to live. Yes, I had my moments. I'm not going to pretend like it was scary. I'm the only one in my family who has cancer. To be incurable and
Mm.
something that was so rare that no one heard of it. I had my moments, but I decided that I couldn't fold. I had to fight for my life. My daughter was 8 years old, and I was determined to beat the odds. Day and night, I read everything about multiple myeloma, clinical trials, drugs, the treatment, stem cell transplant. So I went through the initial treatment. I was able to get into remission, and then I went to the stem cell transplant in 2017. So that was 2016. So now we're in 2024. It's 8 years later, right? And
Yeah.
I'm alive, right? So I'm alive.
Yes.
So one thing I always end every talk with, if I had let that cancer diagnosis consume me, I would have wasted another 8 years of my life.
Yes. Had you even had another 8 years of your life, because if you would have let that get on the inside of you and
Yes.
consume you, chances are it would have overtaken.
It would have overtaken me. But all outside of that too, with that 3 to 5 year window, I
Mhm.
felt like I was running out of time. Like I just started doing all these things. I started my first business. I just started living life differently and seeing life differently. And I
Mhm.
started to think about
Mhm.
all the things that I put off for another year or another month. Oh, when my daughter gets sick or when she goes to high school, I will start. And I started to think about all those things, right? So I
Yeah.
refer to that as the 9 day week, the one day and someday that we add on to the week. Or one day I'll get to it. Someday I'll start that dream. And I just started to
Yeah.
like live, like start a business, go on vacation, stop putting things off. So I use that to like fuel me to live. I just couldn't
Yeah.
see just sitting here, just waiting for time to tick. And my daughter was 8 years old. She was very impressionable at the time as well. If anything, if I was to pass away in 5 years, I wanted her to know your mother fought to the end. And this is my
Absolutely.
legacy. And this was not going to be, oh, I just worked for the bank. And that was it. Like I became more involved in the community. I started a business, helping women start their businesses. Then I became a multiple myeloma coach because to receive that diagnosis is so terrifying, to say the least, right?
Well, yes, and like you said, your whole world turned upside down,
But
and I think when people hear your story, yes, they're absolutely inspired. They also wanna know, how did you do that? How did you hear something that did turn your world upside down? That was literally the worst kind of news we wanna get when the phone rings. You probably stayed there, what, a week, a day, a month? How long before you were able to switch the gear and say, "Okay, this is gonna happen for me, not to me"?
I,
Was there a moment in time?
there was a moment in time of after the initial, we went to the biopsy, and this is really what it is, and I have to go to treatment for it. I'm gonna say 30 days later, when we actually started what's called the induction therapy, where you go on the cycles, right? Twice a week, I go to chemo, I went to radiation, and I had to settle into it, right? So
Mhm.
I coined this term, finding your fearlessness, because I
Yeah.
was terrified. But
Mm.
I couldn't let that paralyze me, and I couldn't show that to the world every day because managing my emotions and my family's emotions is a task.
Yes.
It's a task. So I had to find my fearlessness. I had to put on my fearless face every day, go to treatment, pick my daughter from school, do homework while I'm ill, throwing up, stomach is messy.
Mm.
It's going through the initial treatment of chemotherapy is very vigorous on the body. It's very vigorous. So how do I manage myself, right? And the first step was really to acknowledge where I'm at. Where am I right now? Okay. You're
Mhm.
diagnosed with multiple myeloma. You work for the bank. I was still working at the bank at the time. How do I manage my obligations at work, my treatment, and my daughter? Because multiple myeloma is a lifetime treat, always on treatment until they find a cure.
Mhm.
Like I'm on chemotherapy now, it's called maintenance therapy. So I just made it part of my life. Work, treatment, medicine, everything else. I just put it in the rotation. I
Mhm.
accepted it. I put a plan in place. There were days where I'm more sick than other days because of the treatment cycle. So I make those days lighter. And the days that I felt better, I would do more. I just incorporated in my life like a roadmap and put
Mhm.
on all these other tasks that I wanted to do. And every day I work towards what I wanted to do. And that's what I
Yes.
also teach in my program, Dare to Change. You have to accept it. It has to be part of you. It
Yep.
happened. You can't turn it back. It happened. So yes, you cry about it, you get sad about it, but you have to manage those emotions. Because even today I had a moment. Like my daughter's going to be 17 this next month. About a month away on the 19th, she'll be 17. She's going to start her senior year.
Mm,
It was a time where I thought I would even get to see her get to her senior year.
yeah. Yeah.
So you have those moments when, things remind you of this is what you're faced with. That's normal. But what you're going to do in the in-between to push yourself through it, what matters. What are you going to do? What are you
Yes. Yes. Well, you're such a beautiful candidate for our program because
going
we
to
are
do?
the brave-hearted women. We talk about having to face brave things and find our courage, find our bravery, find
Yeah.
our fearlessness because we're stronger than we know.
Mm-hmm.
But yet and still, there are moments where we're going to feel it. We feel what we're going through. But, when we were going through COVID, we found that statement that's way overused, but we found our new normal. And it
Right.
sounds like you were able to find your new normal. You were find a rhythm. It's like, okay, I have this myeloma, but myeloma doesn't have me.
No.
I'm going to keep on going and I'm going to
No.
find that resilience. And you have your days. But how did you keep from? I see a word a lot on some of your social media, and it's called complacency. How
Oh,
did
the
this
high
jar
cost
you out of
complacency.
complacency?
So my signature talk, one of them is the high cost of complacency. And during this talk or workshop, I really want to employ on the audience this whole idea of us just wanting to be comfortable,
Mhm,
how it makes us complacent, right? And then
mhm,
when something happens, something critical in our lives, we have this regret of why didn't I do this or why didn't I do that, right? So the
right.
high cost of complacency, for me, the high cost of complacency was I went to work for this bank during between undergrad and law school. I started
Okay.
off like as a part-time teller. I don't need a job. Let me find a job until I go to law school. But then my banking career took off
Mm,
and I became comfortable at the bank,
yeah.
which was great. It was rewarding. It was satisfying at times, but that wasn't what my true passion was. The
Mm,
plan was always to go back to law school.
okay.
It would become comfortable. I was in my 20s. I was making a lot of money in sales and securities. Then I got married. I had a child, started going on vacation, and just became comfortable. Like, just sat there. Like, I was doing well, not pushing myself for better for other departments. And within this bank, there were other opportunities that I could have taken advantage of. But I just became so comfortable in retail banking. It was my vertical. I was the go-to person.
Mhm,
I did well year over year. It was a great time. But then when the diagnosis came about and you look back of all the things you could have done and you didn't do, I was comfortable, the high cost of complacency. So what is
mm,
going to be the trigger for you to say, I was comfortable and now I feel like I'm running out of time? Mine
mhm,
was cancer. So, what is going to be the trigger for you to realize that you're comfortable? And we say it all the time. I just want to be comfortable, right? I want to finish school, land a job that I would like, and just be comfortable. We don't really realize psychologically what that does to us, that comfort. We just settle in, we stop stretching ourselves, we
yes.
stop learning new things, new heights. We just become, it's great here until it's not.
Yes.
And then you're like, what did I do to myself?
Right. And we're finding out now that, with so much understanding of the brain and the neuroscience, the brain detects anything, its job is to keep us alive. And anything that
Mhm.
feels like a threat, it says, no, don't do it. And you know what? Change is a threat.
It is.
Stretching feels like a threat. Doing something that's not your normal pattern feels like a threat to the brain. And so, yeah, at all costs, stay comfortable. But we got to push against that. We
And
gotta
push
come
against the
against that
fear.
complacency.
And push against the fear. Fear has a lot to do with how we become comfortable. Fear of the unknown, fear of failure, fear of change, fear of
Right.
they may not understand my idea. Fear, okay,
Rejection.
clarity, not having clarity within yourself brings fear also,
Yeah,
right? Not having a clear
absolutely.
plan and a clear understanding of why you want to do this thing or why you want to try or why you want to start a business. Clarity has a big part to do with it.
Yes.
So that's the high cost of complacency.
That's so good. And you're the great person to speak on that because you're living it. You're not just talking about something you don't know, you're living it. And I agree, fear is definitely a thief and a robber. And I often say, we have to face our fear with a plan. When you don't
Yes,
know what you're going to do, fear gets bigger and bigger and bigger and just it begins to swallow us up. But when we say, hey, wait a minute, let me break this down. Let me put some steps to this. Let me put an
correct.
action plan together. And we start getting mobile, and action always breaks through fear. We can just move. Otherwise, we're paralyzed. We get stuck. How do you help people? Are there specific ways that you help people move into action?
I do. It's called my Dare to Change program. I usually do a small cohort between 4 to 6 women or 1-to-1. And I really particularly like to work with women who are in that transition phase of I've worked for a corporation, they're about to retire, they want to start something new, they have some level of success in their professional and personal life, and now they're looking to step into the next thing in their life.
Yes.
So initially we sit together and I ask them really why you want to do it,
Mm-hmm.
right? You have to own why you want to do it. And it can't be
Good.
me, oh, I just think I should. I'm 45. You have to really own the thing that you would like to do next. Whether it's learning a second language, learning how to cook a different cuisine, starting a business, because you have to use that why as your North Star, right?
Yes.
It's rough. The road to change is rough, right? It's hard to make new habits and be committed to yourself and determination.
Yeah.
Motivation is great, but you need determination to
Mhm.
be successful. So after we go through that process, we talk about the skills, the people, the resources that you may need. Right? We make a list. If you have to hire someone, you want to take a class, what is your zone of genius? What
Mhm.
you're comfortable doing? And how do we put a plan in place to outsource the things that you need?
Yes.
Because being a jack of all trades is okay, but it makes you stagnant a little bit and it also frustrates you. So I try to employ people to be realistic of the things that you can do on your own and the things you need to seek help on. And then after that, we create the roadmap. Think about
Mhm.
it as a GPS, right? The final destination is here. When we put the address in our car as a GPS, it tells you road closure, accident, detour. So we sit down and we do a realistic plan of what your life is like between your professional obligations, your personal obligations, your kids going to soccer, and frame out a time that you could work towards this goal every day.
That's so beautiful. And, the Bible even says without a vision, people just
Mhm.
cast off restraint. We just flounder, we just float around. But once you
So,
get a vision, you get that true north, you get that massive action plan. Now you can make traction. But I also like the piece, you didn't use this word, but accountability or
okay.
just that piece where you're talking to someone. Because what if
Mhm.
you don't have the discipline?
No, that's part of it. Accountability, right?
Yep.
Self-awareness. So I'm a coach, right? I didn't like really call myself. I'm like a legacy leader, right? I'm just trying to
I
guide
like,
you into forming your legacy, right? Accountability is key, but self accountability, right? You
right.
have to hold yourself accountable. It's great. We talk once a week, every other week. I give you a pep talk. I do check ins with you. It could be daily, by email, by text. Hey, did you finish that project? But do you have to really want it for yourself? And you have to find that part that makes you accountable to yourself.
Mhm.
So try to devise the program with the individual where the optimal time that they could work on their project.
Yeah, a
So
realistic plan.
right, my optimal time is between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m.
Yeah.
That's when I do my best work. When is your best time? And put it into a routine and do it and practice it every day. You
Mhm.
have to work on it every day. Whether it's reading 10 pages, writing your pillars, your mission statement, you have to do something every day towards that goal because it becomes ingrained in you, which is important. And then we execute. And I always ask them, and I hold them accountable to this part, leave room in the plan for achievements, but to celebrate. And also if you have to redirect, if you have
Mhm.
to take another route.
Mhm.
Let's say Sally now was in gymnastics and now you have less time. How do you redirect your goals that you still stay on target? Because one thing for sure time is not refundable.
Yeah.
One days and some
Say
days, you
that.
never get them back. And then
Mhm.
you look up, it's 10 years later, and you didn't do that thing you wanted to do.
So
So,
good. And that you talked about the GPS is that's what the GPS does too. If there's an obstacle in the way, it'll say rerouting, or if you miss a turn, right? Redirecting, rerouting, when possible, make a U-turn.
accident ahead, receive
Excellent.
caution.
Right. So, it's okay. Life happens, so we can adjust that plan. But, when the rocket is heading to the moon, it knows it's going to the moon, but it says it's off course about 90% of the time, but it still makes it there.
Right.
So, yeah, great. We'd love to have a straight line. Life is rarely a straight line, but we keep,
Realistically.
right, but we keep moving forward. You talked about living authentically. You may not have said those words, but I did read that in your bio, and you help women, especially in their next. And this is my audience too. We've lived for everybody else. We've made other people's dreams come true. We might have been
Mhm.
complacent and stayed in a job, but now, just life season, we are going to our next. How do we show up authentically this time for us? Not selfish, but self worth, self care. To say, I deserve to live a life that's true to who I am.
Oftentimes women, especially women, I should say, they always put their dreams on the back burner.
Mhm.
Always. We're raising a family. We may not take the position because other family obligations. Women are nurturers. We tend to take that responsibility in the workplace and in the home. But our counterparts don't do that. They
Mhm.
go full steam ahead.
Oh, yeah.
They go after those promotions. They are not afraid 9 times out of 10 to switch jobs, move to companies. They're not looking to be stagnant in that way. They are driven by their own dreams. And for women, we tend to be like, all right, I'll wait my turn. And I get it like that to a degree. But after this, I felt like be yourself. Live
Mm.
your dreams. Write your own narratives. Also, women tend to fall into what society say we should do,
Mhm.
right? We should be at home. We should just go to work and come home and be the nurturer. We should be the one rearing the kids while the husband goes out and gets the bacon.
Right.
Even though those dynamics have changed because most households have two, both parents are working, but to some degree, there are some society pressures around women still to this
Yes.
extent. Like,
It still
it's
feels like the, script for women. Here's what you
correct.
do.
Right. And then you fall into the status quo, which also leads you to become complacent. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Finish school, land a job, find that perfect mate, be that loving parent, and then be the friend that everyone could rely on.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. It's a joy having you here today. And if you had one last thing to say to women who are listening today, maybe they did also receive a diagnosis. Maybe they're stuck. Maybe they know, Keisha, that their next has to happen. Like, I'm done here. My season's over, but I'm not. I feel so afraid to make a change. What would you say?
This is what I would say. I dare you to change. I
Ooh.
dare you. What do you have to lose? I dare you to change. Really think about the risk and the reward. What is the risk and how sweet the reward is going to be when you try it and you stand the course and you do it?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm here to tell you, complacency is the anchor that keeps our dreams from sailing.
Yes. Yeah.
I
That
dare you. Don't
you got
be.
me choked up because you just gave permission. You threw down the gauntlet. You gave a challenge. Not only permission, but I dare you to
Dare
change. I
you.
dare you to face that mountain. Come on, girl. You are a
You do
brave
it.
woman.
You
Do
can
it.
do it. You can do it.
Yes,
And you
you can.
said something in the beginning of this broadcast. We are stronger than we give ourselves credit for.
Yeah.
Right? We
Right.
are very resilient as women,
Yes.
right? We
We
all have a brave story. Some of our stories are a little bit more critical than others. Prior to being diagnosed with multiple myeloma, there were probably 4 other things I could think of from the top of my head that should have pushed me out of complacency, should have shook me to the core.
mm,
But my diagnosis was it for me, right? That was my trigger. Like, girl, you run out of time. You better just go for it. So I'm sure if each of us look back, there was a time where we should have been like, all right, this is it. Like, I had enough.
Yep.
It's time to move forward.
Yep.
So I dare you to change.
All right.
Dare you. You too, Dawn. Think about something.
I am. My wheels are turning. I'm thinking about it. And I'm not trying to hear that right now, but you know what? Yes, I am. I'm thinking about it. And, I went through a very significant change. My listeners know this, but, when I was 46 years old, my husband left after 28 years of marriage. Oh, I was hurled out into the unknown, all the things. And so since then, God has blessed me 100-fold. I'm so thankful. But then 2 years ago, I jumped out again in terms of I left my career, left my livelihood, and started my entrepreneurial business. And it's not for the faint of heart. It's a grind. You got to keep believing, you got to keep going. But every day I look at my vision board, and every day I look at those goals. And every day, like you said, I say, what is it today? I will boldly rise to my design. This is what God put inside of me. I'm not going to
Correct.
shrink. I'm not going to quit. And I'm going to keep believing for the greatness that I believe is inside of me, and you too. And
Welcome.
so,
God bless you. I don't even talk about that part of it because prior to being diagnosed, my husband and I also split.
mm,
At that point, I was thinking, I'm gonna live the second half of my life. And then came my diagnosis 2 years later. And I was like, oh, this is it.
yeah,
Right. It happens. I say it's a million things like, but the cancer diagnosis was it for me, but there were other things that happened in my life, separation and other challenges that should have shook me to the core. But I was young. I was only 38. I felt like I had time.
right.
But don't take time for granted.
Don't
Don't.
take time for
God bless you,
granted.
Dawn. I
Thank,
listen. I enjoyed my time with you on the
thank you.
podcast. I know
You
that you're a God-fearing woman, and once you
am.
believe, there's no reason to be fearful.
That's right.
He will see you
That's
through.
right. Perfect love casts out
Perfect
all that.
love.
And I've loved my time with you. You're a beautiful woman. How can people get a hold of you?
Please, I would love to connect with anyone in your audience that will say, Keisha, you know what? That was great. Thank you for the words of encouragement. If you'd
Yes.
like to offer to hear me speak at one of your events, Women Empowerment in the Office, they can reach me at KeishaHickson.com, book a call. I'll be more than happy to speak with anyone who is out there also maybe going through a newly diagnosis, well as multiple myeloma or not. Unfortunately, we do share that club. We are part of the Cancer Society, and I'd be more than happy to offer any support that I can.
Beautiful. And we'll have all of that in the show notes for you. Listeners, take advantage of the wisdom, the wealth of information, just the anointing and the beautiful woman that's before us today. Thank you for sharing your heart and your authenticity. And listeners, I'm going to leave you, my sisters, like I always do. Dawn Damon, your Braveheart mentor, saying, is it time for you to find your brave and live your dreams?